Let's start with a trivia quiz. And I gotta warn you, these are kind of trick questions. How many aviators eject in Top Gun Maverick? And secondly, how many ejections are there in Top Gun Maverick? I'll give you the answers at the end of this episode. So renowned astrophysicist Neil DeGrasse Tyson recently tweeted some criticism of Top Gun Maverick. Neil has a pretty gigantic Twitter footprint, 14.8 million followers. And a couple of days ago, he tweeted this. Late to the party here, but in this year's Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise's character Maverick ejects from a hypersonic plane at Mach 10.5 before it crashed. He survived with no injuries. At that speed, his body would splatter like a chainmail glove swatting a worm. Just saying. So point of order, first, Tom Cruise did have some injuries by Tom Cruise standards. Here we see him walk into the diner. His hair is pretty messed up, and he's really thirsty. Plus, he was disoriented. He didn't know that he was on Earth. Tyson follows that first tweet with a few more. This one reads, at supersonic speeds, air cannot smoothly part for you. You must pierce it, which largely accounts for the differences in fuselage designs between subsonic and supersonic planes. For this reason, the air on your body, if ejecting at these speeds, might as well be a brick wall. And then the next tweet reads, when Maverick ejected at Mach 10.5, he was going 7,000 miles per hour, giving him 400 million joules of kinetic energy, the explosive power of 100 kilograms of TNT, a situation that human physiology is not designed to survive. So no, Maverick does not walk away from this. He'd be dead, very dead. So let's look at the SR-72 breakup sequence real quick.
Maverick.
Like the rest of social media, on Twitter, the full story lives not just with the tweet, but with the replies to the tweets. And in this case, they're pithy, like Paul writing, Neil was never invited back to play Dungeons and Dragons, or Ray Squiggles replying, only possible because he does his own stunts. Or they're pedantic and predictable, like Jade replying, it's just a movie, Neil, and it's really fun to watch. You can find that reply in all of my movie analysis episodes dozens of times, and for that I'm very grateful. But the replies are also factual. Here, Johnny Lieberman replies, wouldn't it be more a matter of the rate of deceleration? Which brings up a great point. So just like with any supersonic airplane, not to mention a hypersonic airplane, when the structure of the airplane is compromised or the power plant stops working at full capacity, the airplane is going to slow down fast. So in actuality, as the airplane was coming apart, it was going very fast, but it was not going Mach 10.5. How fast exactly is unknowable, but it could have been slow enough that a pilot could survive. And for precedent on that fact, we turn to this next reply, where Josh Tisdale rightly points out it's very unlikely, but just like this guy made it from 78,000 feet at Mach 3.2, it could have been possible with the correct circumstances and gear. So remember, we talked about this during the SR-71 episode of What Makes This Plane Great, where a pilot who was testing the high-speed, high-altitude characteristics of the Blackbird had a power asymmetry that caused the airplane to disintegrate at Mach 3.2 and 78,000 feet. The breakup of the airplane knocked him unconscious, so he has no recollection of the mishap, but he did survive. And that mishap was certainly what the screenwriters used in Top Gun Maverick for that scene. In another reply, Andrew Smolinski writes, or the Dark Star was designed with a cockpit pod meant to survive such an ejection. See the F-111. Odds are an aircraft designed to go that speed would have a safety feature. So Andrew makes a good point there. Yes, test pilots assume risks, but when engineers are designing a platform, they have to do the risk mitigation at every flight regime, or else that program is not going to get approved. So what we don't know from the SR-72 mishap scene in Top Gun Maverick is what exactly is the Dark Star's escape system. Is it a straight-stick ejection seat, or is there a pod? Pods were designed as part of the escape system on the ill-fated XB-70, the F-111, and the B-1 bomber. The other thing you have to consider is what kind of gear are the aviators wearing. Remember, Blackbird pilots wore pressure suits and their helmets were enclosed. Also, the ejection seat had a system that in the event you ejected at high altitude, high speed, that the suit would remain pressurized and the pilot would have enough oxygen to make it down to lower altitudes. And in terms of tactical aircraft, like the Tomcat and the Eagle, for instance, supersonic but not hypersonic, the ejection systems were designed to maximize your chance for survival at high airspeed. In the F-14, we wore what were called leg restraints that fit around your calf and ankle kind of like spurs, that would attach to the fittings on the bottom of the ejection seat. And in the event of an ejection, our legs would be pulled tight so they wouldn't flail once we hit the wind stream. And there are examples of crews ejecting supersonic and surviving. Listen to this Eagle pilot describe his experience.
When I went out into the wind stream, it ripped my helmet right off of my head, broke all the blood vessels in my head and face. My head was swollen the size of a basketball and my lips were the size of cucumbers. My left elbow was dislocated and pointed backwards. The only thing holding my leg on was an artery, the vein, the nerve, and the skin. And my left leg snapped at the bottom half.
So the second and third ejections in Top Gun Maverick happen when Phoenix and Bob have a bird strike during a training mission. In this sequence, you can see each one of them pull the ejection handle. Bob goes first. So remember, as we've discussed in previous episodes, crews in tandem seat jets can configure the ejection sequence in one of two ways. In the F-14, the ejection sequence was controlled by the RIO. So in my cockpit, I had a lever that the aft position was MCO, Mission Commander Option. What that meant is if I pulled the handle, canopy would come off, rear seat would go, half second later, the front seat would go. The forward position was labeled pilot. So in that case, if the RIO pulls the handle, canopy will come off and only the RIO will go. So in the scene from Top Gun Maverick, when Phoenix and Bob eject, they each pull their handles. So that looks like they had it set up in the pilot option, which is probably not how a fleet crew would configure the airplane. Generally, with fleet crews, pilots and WISOs have a contract where the pilot's going to continue flying the airplane and the WISO will make the decision to eject. But I'm not saying that's a cringeworthy error. The way they do it is technically possible. Also, when they eject, it's subsonic, so there's no issue with them having any kinds of flail injuries due to supersonic speeds. They do eject dangerously close to the ground, however, but obviously manage to get two good shoots and survive. And then later, Maverick is shot down by a SLAM over bad guy country. You don't see an ejection, but he winds up on the ground. So let's assume he did wind up ejecting and getting a good shoot. And then Rooster gets shot down after taking out the helicopter that was about to shoot Maverick, and he winds up getting shot down and gets a good shoot. So let's go back to my original trivia question and do the math. 1, Maverick ejects out of the SR-72. 2 and 3, Phoenix and Bob eject out of a Super Hornet. 4, Maverick ejects out of a Super Hornet. 5, Rooster ejects out of a Super Hornet. But wait, you thought I was going to forget the Su-57 that Maverick and Rooster gun on their way out of bad guy country. So the grand total is 5 aviators for 6 ejections. Let me know in the comments if you got it right. Now, one last tweet that Dr. Tyson does about the movie in this thread is this one. In this year's Top Gun Maverick, they dangerously fly under the radar through a narrow winding canyon to destroy a target, avoiding multiple banks of surface-to-air missiles. But why not first take out the missile banks? Could then fly without daredevil maneuvers. Just saying. Okay, Neil, I don't think you fully appreciate the Pandora's box you open with that tweet. And Lisa Wood's sarcastic response here kind of sums it up. Yep, thank goodness the rest of the film is so realistic. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Lots more coming up, so if you're not already a subscriber, hit the button and ring the bell so you don't miss anything. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please consider using the super thanks, the heart icon below, or become a patron at patreon.com/WardCarroll. In the meantime, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.